Hello, you all. It has been quite a minute. Been away from the league racing, been away from the career mode recordings for a while. But we are back, and we are here in F1 2024. Just released, got on pretty much right away. But there is a revamped driver career mode that we're going to be taking a look into and starting today. We will eventually, over the course of the year, get into the My Team career, and you may see the occasional challenge career pop up here and there. But the big updates and changes really to gameplay-wise are in the driver career, so that's where we're going to head into F1 24. Now, maybe in the future, I'll do a more hardcore 100% distance, start in F2 kind of one, but for this situation, we are going to skip directly to F1 to get to the real action right away and get rocking and rolling. We'll do a full season, so we'll visit all 24 events on the F1 calendar. My team will take a little bit of a different tack just to keep it interesting and flowing, but for the driver career, we'll go full on. So let's take a look at the settings that we're going to be using for this driver career. So of course, as usual, assists are all switched off, no ABS, no traction control. It's going to be tough. It's a little easier to lock brakes this year. AI difficulty, I did a couple of test runs in Grand Prix mode and also in career with the team I expect to be with. 103 seems to be about where I'm at. So format wise this season, or this series, we will go with the short qualifying format. So the 18-minute single session, and the session length or the race is actually going to be 50% distance race. So full race or 50% race considered long. We'll put the forecast accuracy to approximate. Now, since there's the opportunity to move from team to team, I will keep the resource rates between player team and AI teams the same, so I don't just let an AI team get a ton of resources and then jump to that team later on. So that's going to be the system we'll take there. Fault types, we'll keep the fault frequency low, but we will have high fault types, so we can have full-on mechanical failures if they pop up. May end a good race in an inopportune time. Rules-wise, strict corner cutting, so we're going to have to watch out for those 3-second time penalties if they happen. We are keeping red flags off, though, just to keep it moving. There does appear, though, to be a little bit of a bug in the career mode that's been noticed that they're working to patch on, where there's not enough yellow flags or safety cars. I did a couple. At this stage, I'm a few races ahead, and I haven't seen one yet. We are leaving flashbacks available just in case, the AI sometimes does some pretty stupid things, especially moving aggressively under braking all of a sudden, that I just don't accept. But we will keep car damage and damage rate on as standard. So we do have to watch out for some of those damages. So those are the career settings that we will confirm and move forward with. Next up, we'll get into the driver setup, I believe it is. Yes. So you have the option to do and add on to an existing driver's career, but we are going to go custom driver. We are going to be ourselves as usual. So let's go ahead and get the driver set up. Go find our familiar face that we usually use. I've been using since I think F1 2019. It's been a classic one, about as close as we can get to me, I think. He's got a lot more hair than I do, though, at this stage. Fly under the American flag if my accent wasn't any indication. And Quimby, short for Quimbulus, and Provenza will be the name. PRO for those 3 digits. Now, as we have done many a time, we will scroll way down this list as... Well, my name's not going to be in the list for sure, but since I'm no spring chicken myself, we will go with the classic old-timer. Love hearing the announcers call me old-timer. It's kind of amusing and funny. Our lucky number 13 is still available, so as usual, we will keep number 13 on board and then get ready to head to the next bit. One thing I don't agree with, there's a lot fewer default customization options. I did spend a little bit of the Pitcoin that came with the pre-order in order to get another helmet, because the default one has that kind of neon pattern that you see across the chest. The helmet's the same way, and you cannot change it. It is stuck there. So I had to grab another helmet that will at least allow me to do it fully in my own colors. We'll go with the classic combination, the black, orange, and green that we've been keeping on our helmet for quite some time now in League Racing. And do some housekeeping like selecting Victory Call and Evo, so we're good. Next up, you can see we've got driver ratings applied to our driver now. So those are going to be ratings that we have to hit as targets throughout our career, and we'll move ourselves up. But first, our original plan here is to go with the Haas F1 team to start. So we are going to select the Ferrari Driver Academy in order to get a little bit of a rep boost with the Haas F1 team. Obviously, we don't need to customize our race suit because we are going to be given the race suit of our team once we get in there. So here we are, team select, and we are going to scroll on over. Bottom of the grid, the Haas F1 team. That black and red's a nice look. The black and gold, Lotus homage that was Rich Energy was kind of nice back in the day, but we're black and red. And we get to select our teammates. So we do have an interesting choice, pretty evenly matched between Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. Kevin has a little bit higher raw pace, but we are going to take the slightly higher overall rated Nico Hulkenberg as a teammate, just as our benchmark, because obviously your first benchmark is always your teammate. It's going to be tough because I don't typically qualify as well as I race, and at 103 difficulty, qualifying is tough. But here we are in Monaco, and we are going to meet with our agent to sign our first contract.
Finally, let's do this for real. Sorry it took so long. You know what these legal types are like? Yes, sir. No, sir. Here's 80 pages of needless jargon, sir. Anyway, believe it or not, this is my excited face. Come on. Let me show you what we've got. So, all the usual stuff, merchandising, likeness, blah, 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 but the really juicy stuff is their expectation of you. They need you to challenge yourself all season, be the best you can be, dominate your teammate, become a legend. All that jazz. Now, it's over to you.
So here we have it, the first look at the contract terms screen that we will see every time we need to sign a new contract. You can see up at the top, there's a split between yours and your teammates' reputation, so to speak. So we are going to select our target rating, which we want to hit by the middle of the season. It looks like a good bonus if we go for 70, just above the recommended 69 target rating by the end of the season. Of course, your first season in, you're only able to select a single season contract, but choosing longer contracts can improve your reputation with your teams. So it's definitely something to look out for as we go throughout this career mode. So here we are arriving in the brand new space. It's going to be kind of the career home and the new look to the usual menu that we've grown familiar with my team, but it's been dialed in a little bit differently with our driver ratings. Nice and prominent. Our first messages from the team are our manager getting our ratings rivalry going. Ayo Kumatsu, team boss of Haas F1, welcoming us on board. And Mark here, talking about a new feature for 24's career mode, the Team of Specialists, a series of part-time workers that will give us different goals to hit. And as we rank these people up, we will get different benefits from them. So you can see race weekend number 1, manufacturing expert is the only one available. There are a few more, but they'll give you a choice of 2 goals. We're just going to go with complete the race weekend, but you can see the perks once you get level 1, 2, and 3. Reduces the failure chance, but other consultants will be arriving later in the season, some of them as early as next race. We'll get some more goals, but you can see kind of the driver details, your contracts, your accolades, your rivals, a graph of over the course of the season, the way your ratings change, and ability to compare yourself side by side with the other drivers. The R&D screen looks very familiar. There's a new icon, a little eyeball that shows what your teammate is interested in looking into. We only have 273 points at the start, so we can't afford any of these 400 credit or resource point buys yet, but we do have 2 weeks of passive resource points gain coming before we start the season, so we'll at least be able to get something in the pipeline before we go to the first race. It won't be available to us, but we'll at least get something going. And of course, another part of that percentage split that you saw in the contract terms between myself and my teammate, that is also going to affect the weekly resource split. So as we advance, you can see Nico Hulkenberg is going to get 112 resource points. We're going to get 88. So that's that 55-45 split based on the contract signing. So we will be getting a little bit less resource points going forward, but with the second one, we should be able to get up to over 400 and make a resource upgrade purchase coming up. But let's take a look at the driver grid reveal. You can see there's a bit of an improvement to the looks and faces, especially of the F1 drivers on the grid. The hair looks a little bit better than last year. Still not the most photorealistic, but making movement in the right direction. Of course, these drivers usually have their helmets on, so it's not a huge thing. One thing that stands out aggressively, though, if you notice, everybody's the same height, and when it gets to these guys, Yuki Tsunoda is a giant. So it seems like kind of a lazy rigged everybody onto the same body, but look at that Giga Yuki Tsunoda. You've seen real pictures of him and Danny Rick. Yuki is significantly the shortest guy on the grid, but apparently he's a giant in here, and as a result, his proportions seem a little off, and he's huge. So it's pretty amusing to look at. So a quick message from our team boss on season objectives. Of course, we're starting the season at the bottom of the performance charts, and we don't expect too much out of that. So with the next resource pack in, you can see Nico Hulkenberg eyeing an upgrade on the front wing adjuster bracket. He's already spent his points on a cockpit weight reduction. So we're looking for something to spend, and being new to the team, we're going to go ahead and go with the knowledge of our teammate. We're going to go ahead and develop what he's looking at, give him a heads up, and let him start looking in other places. But as you can see, that's not expected until before the third race of the season for that development to be completed. So let's get ready to head over to the first race weekend of the season, Bahrain. I'll do all the practices off screen, and then we'll jump into the trailer before we get into the qualifying session and talk through a little bit of the weekend process once we get there. So here we are in the base of operations at the track. You can see the practice programs have been completed. Practice 1, 2, and 3. My usual process in FP1, of course, you have your 3 typical practice programs that you're available to use. Always race strategy is one, but then the other 2 are a mixture or a change each week of qualifying sim, tire management, fuel management, ERS management. I think there's one I'm forgetting. Oh, and track acclimatization. So my usual plan is in FP1, I do one of the practice programs on the hard tire, usually track acclimatization, tire management, that sort of thing. And another run, I'll do another set of runs on the soft compounded tire, which is usually quali sim, fuel management, ERS management, basically whatever works best. I use one soft and one hard. FP2, I'll do the medium tire and run the race strategy simulation, run all 5 laps of that, and then take another set of soft tires and do my own quali sim, where I take the fuel out and go for, as we would normally do in a qualifying session. So just checking through the emails, nothing too crazy. Weather forecast, obviously we're in Bahrain in the desert. We're going to be pretty dry out here. Any developments have come in. I don't know that anybody's necessarily changed, but we are starting back of the performance charts. So let's head over into qualifying.
Under the bright lights of Bahrain, it is time for qualifying. Grid position up in the air. Who is going to seize the moment?
So I won't talk too much about my braking points and that sort of thing around the track here. I will take the time here in this first qualifying session to talk about some of the changes that we've seen in F1 24. Number 1 is the ERS mode has changed. So the battery drains and deploys a lot faster, almost similar to the way F1 Manager handles it. But you also have access to all ERS modes in all sessions now. So before, you used to only be able to use the medium or none modes in the race. In qualifying, you can only use hot lap and none. Now you can use all of them everywhere, including the overtake button here in qualifying. One thing that we've noticed is at the stage, it doesn't seem Hot Lap is dialed in for its deployment quite right. You do tend to end up with some leftover battery charge. So it is good to kind of figure out where you want to deploy the overtake on a straight to make maximum use of your battery. Now, looking at the heads-up display and the UI, things have moved around. Your braking and throttle traces now, you look at little thin diagonal lines to the right of the speedometer. That green line is the throttle trace, and just to the left of the RPM gauge, just popping up now, is the brake trace. Above that, in the middle, of course, you have your overall battery state of charge in that percentage, and that is the same as the yellow bar on the right. It is telling you the same information, how full the battery is. It's just giving it to you in a bar instead of in the battery. Just above that, that green bar is the amount of ERS you are allowed to deploy per lap. So the goal is to burn all of that by the time we get to the start-finish line, and that's by using our overtake mode a little bit. And just to the left of the battery, that just cleared out, used to be a bit of a bigger red block, and we'll see it coming up very soon. That is the amount of recharge you are allowed per lap. So there's a maximum amount that you can recover via your MGUK, the kinetic braking energy recovery, per lap. It does appear that even when that bar is full, you are able to recover some energy via the MGU-H, the motor generator unit heat, which pulls off of the turbo's waste gases to try and recharge. And usually is when you see the lights blinking on a car at the end of a straight, they're recovering and not deploying. So those are definitely important to keep an eye out for, especially the recharge one, that red bar in the last game. It's very hard to recharge your battery. You could only get a couple percent per lap. Now you can recharge significantly more of your battery per lap, and it definitely changes the way you go about racing. So as we come towards the middle part of the lap, there was a big mistake in Sector 1, kind of made a hash of the exit of Turn 1. So that's put us on the back foot a little bit, but we do have some time that we can gain here in the middle and final sectors. We have some battery to deploy, I think, in a better strategic location to burn the battery. You can see we've lost a little bit more time. We're about 2/10, but a good turn in to the right-hander, and now we're going to burn a little more battery, and we're actually going to gain some time down the straight. Once we get into the race, I'll talk a little bit more about the handling model and its changes. It's not in the best of states, I'll be frank, at the moment, but there are plans for an upgrade or a patch very soon. And we're going to find about 2/10 on our final flying lap, but it is still not going to be good enough to move us off the back of the grid. So definitely behind our teammate. We'll see what the gap
Well,
is.
that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So Verstappen on pole and Nico Hülkenberg in 15th, 28.8. We did a 29.1, so we're about 0.3 off of our teammate in qualifying, which I expect it's going to be a challenge based on the difficulty for me to be matching my teammate in qualifying. However, it's all about the race and what we can do there.
Months of rumour and speculation all comes to an end today as we return to racing for the opening event of what promises to be an enthralling season. Welcome along then to round one of this year's Formula One World Championship. Formula One returns to the desert today and this exceptional 3.36 mile circuit. 15 corners provide plenty of overtaking opportunities, and it could be a strategic race, this one, with Sakhir notorious for eating up the rear tyres. Watch out for drivers managing their rubber at some point during the Grand Prix. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Hamilton, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Bottas, Stroll, Zhou, Gasly, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo, Sargent, Ocon, Tsunoda, Oldtimer, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Shakes. Alongside me, a real authority on all things motor racing. It's a warm welcome back to Anthony Davidson. Well, welcome back. Let's start with a nice, easy question. How do you stop Max Verstappen?
That's what they're hoping for. And that's what we're hoping for as well in some ways, because we don't want to see just one driver or one team running away with it this season like we had last year or even the years gone by in this sport. Can we get to see a two-way or even a three- or four-way fight throughout this race today? Fingers crossed we'll get that.
Back of the grid's not what we're aiming for. See if you can make up a few places at the start.
So here we are in our first race strategy session. The default personalized based on our our practice running says it's a one stop, but it looks like it's really going to kill the tires. And considering the Haas has pretty poor tire management already, I decided to go with the medium soft combination. Still just trying to get a feel for how the car is going to behave, what strategies are going to be viable, and just how the race shakes out over the course of this one. Another thing that is kind of happening is that you get a bit of DRS trains going on, but here we are on the grid. 5 red lights are up. We wait for them to go out, and it's an okay start. It looks like Alex Albon had to take a grid penalty, so probably a power unit change already for him between qualifying and the race. So we're going to look to go around the outside. A little room left from Danny Rick and Yuki Tsunoda, so we're wide around the outside of turn 1, 3 wide, so we're just going to be very cautious, and we're going to duck in. We've managed to actually jump ahead of our teammate by sweeping around the outside, and now in the slipstream of the Alpine. One thing that has covered on from last season's game, AI is still pretty impressive in a straight line, especially on higher difficulties where they kind of get a lighter car. So we're going to dive up the inside of Esteban Ocon here as they open up the door a fair bit.
Okay, the start was fine. Let's try and move forward.
And now we're on the way down in turn 10. Bit of a locking up on the front left. They're not quite able to get the car slowed down, but we're able to get it slowed down enough to not crash into the back. But you can see field not really spreading out very much. The slipstream decently powerful. Of course, we're only on lap 1. So you can also see now, instead of just the battery light flashing on cars and that under 10% mark, you'll now see it behave more like you expect in a real F1 race, where when the car goes to the recharge mode, if you watch the battery, you'll see as we get to the end of this straight, it's going to start going up and recharging just a tiny bit there. So we have it probably the next straight now that I think about it. But at the end of some of the longer straights, your car will switch from deploying battery to recharging battery. So we're going to move just defensive to the inside, but you can see the straight line speed of Esteban Ocon just moving forward ahead of us. We're going to brake a lot later than him and get down into turn 1 and hold that position off. So it's going to be very important for us to hold in the DRS zone. Of course, with the rule change, DRS becomes enabled on lap 2 instead of lap 3 now, so we do have that available to us. And that's Ocon sticking his nose just a little bit up the inside. We're going to shut the door on it and not let him get up there, but we're kind of falling in danger of falling off this pack ahead. However, we are carrying a bit more downforce than the cars around us. So middle sector, we tend to make up a little bit of time. But the AI very strong in getting on the power, getting back into the acceleration zones. So it's definitely a challenge for us there. So here we are in the DRS train. You can see the field just kind of starting to follow in line. One thing that we've noticed already is that there does seem to be kind of a pack racing situation going on, where if you get disconnected from the group in front of you, it's very difficult to bridge that gap and close back up unless you have a significant tire advantage. However, a much slower performance car, if they just kind of sit in the DRS train, does have the ability to just kind of ride with the main pack. So you tend to see quite a bit of grouping up, but now that we've got this DRS available to us, we can just kind of hold in. Now we're going to jump ahead now, lap 4 of 29. You can see big snap of rear locking heading into the final corner. That's opened up quite a big gap to the car ahead of us. And just as I was talking about, when you lose touch with that group ahead, we've still got DRS. I'm burning a lot of battery to just try and stay in and hold on to the DRS. Maybe we can get it back. A little lock up into turn 1. We do manage to hold DRS, but it's really important with the way the pack is. You can see, if you look at the mini map, from first all the way down, there's not a whole lot of gaps. We're actually the biggest gap.
Very, very hot. Engine's running hot. Let's try and keep it cooler.
So next thing that we see pop up is another new addition to the driver career mode, these in-race objectives. They've been some interesting ones. Popping out. First off, you can see keeping the engine temperature under wraps, but as a result, you can see it's going to kind of happen naturally because I'm not quite able to hang on to the back of Gasly. We've lost DRS now, so we're going to lose quite a bit of time in this straight line, and you can now see what happens when you lose touch with the car ahead. We're kind of hanging out nice and comfortably, but now we've kind of lost touch. So of course, staying in the line, in the pack, the engine temperature gets very high, and of course, as that engine temperature gets into the yellow range, you lose a little bit of performance and top-end speed. It kind of burns out, but I burned kind of the last of my battery down into this corner, and we weren't able to stay with the DRS. So, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble for the rest of this race. It's kind of going to impact our ability to move forward. So, making a move, Ocon down the outside is going to go for the move on us. We're going to hold the inside just so Sargent doesn't fall through. A little bit of a lockup on the braking contact side by side with Ocon. It allows us to kind of retain the position ahead. He's going to slot in. But since he passed us on the straight, we're going to have DRS. He's still got good enough exit speed to try and pull alongside of us. We just hold the inside line, stay on the racing line. Now it's going to put Sargent and Ocon battling, although Ocon is able to slot ahead and sort out. But you can see already 2.2 seconds the margin to the car ahead. So that little bit of fighting side by side cost us some time, and now kind of our opportunity to grab onto points is very much slipping away. Because once you're in clean air, the performance rating of the car does kind of show. And since we're the lowest rated car on the performance list, the odds of us being able to keep up are pretty low. We're hopping ahead, lap 10 of 29, and you can see, based on people pitting in and coming in, we've actually cycled up as we've stayed out to P2 at the moment. But that is very much not going to last. It is our pit window. We do have Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo breathing down our gearbox at this stage of the race. We're just trying to hold them off, and this was probably the first of my strategic blunders. I didn't really want to try and overthink the strategy too much in this race. Wanted to just kind of figure out how it's behaving. But the undercut does appear to be pretty decent. And we were going to have to try and make up some time on the fresh tires at the end. Of course, we are going soft tires at the very end of the race, so maybe we'll have the opportunity to cut through a couple of positions. But you can see how much, even with a couple of gaps have opened up, you can see the Kick Sauber teams have dropped off on the mini map. And as we work our way through the start of the third sector, we'll be coming into the pits this time, and getting ready to go for some quicker laps to go. So one thing I have noticed so far in the way that Hot Lap is currently adjusted and tuned, the same issues that were keeping it from deploying fully during a qualifying session means that for the time being you can run Hot Lap on for several laps in the race. So you can pop it in. It basically overrides some of the end of the straight harvesting. So you basically are using ERS all the way till the end of the straight. There's the first pit stop done. Onto another set of medium tires, but you can see there goes the Sauber team. And you can see just in the distance coming up is the Alpine Williams Haas battle that's happening. Of course, Alex Albon at the back is a little disconnected from us, but we're going to come out all the way in 19th place. So pitting from second, enough of a clump that we go all the way to 19th, and you can see that big train just heading into the second sector. But side by side goes Hulkenberg and Ocon. I've got fresh tires. I want to try and make a move, and Sargent now, because these two are fighting, is opening up a bit of a gap, and that's going to be kind of crucial If we can hold him in line, then we might be able to do a big rear lock as we had a little look to the inside. Cold tires, definitely something more to deal with in this year's game. Usually by the end of the first sector in last year's game, the tires were pretty decently performing, but you do have to manage the chilliness of the tires a little bit in this one. So here we go, heading into the second sector, starting the third. We'll talk a little bit about the handling. So the handling model is admittedly not the best right now. There are some issues with just the amount of overall grip that is available to the tires. The nose is very, very pointy in the current setups, and you know, the rear tires, the car seems to not want to break free all that much at mid and high speeds. One of the biggest issues is that when you are understeering, you know, putting too much steering lock in, the car doesn't really behave like it's understeering. Like, it doesn't hit a certain threshold of grip and then drop off if you're putting in too much steering lock. It kind of acts like when you put in more steering lock, you'll get more. But we're going to go around the outside 3 wide. We had a bit of a run on our teammate, and we actually get a double overtake done.
Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please.
But it shows itself more in the next race in Jeddah, especially Sector 1. You kind of can throw the car into a corner a lot more and not worry about the back end breaking loose, which I think is kind of unrealistic. And the other thing is the amount of grip that the tires have makes it a lot harder to scrub the tires on like a formation or a prep lap before the race or before a qualifying lap. It's actually very hard at non-race speeds to get temperature into the tires. You kind of have to drive fast in order to put enough load into the tires right now. I believe that is something that is being adjusted in the next upcoming handling patch, but I have recorded a few races on the existing handling patch. So we'll see if anything changes once I get to the next one. I think I'm 5 races in. I think I just finished China at the time of recording this commentary to get kind of dialed in, but we're ahead. We're trying to break the DRS from our teammate Nico. If we can, then we'll have just kind of clear air, but we're not quite able to get it, and the problem with not breaking that DRS gap The problem with trying to break that gap is if we're not able to, we're having to spend a fair bit of overtake and battery on defending and maintaining our position down straight. If we were able to break that DRS zone, we would actually have the opportunity to recharge for some laps. But here's the next objective given to us. It's let your teammate by within a few laps. They're saying Nico is faster than you. Now, I'm not sure what the logic is, if there's a clever way that it thinks about it, if it's actually looking at their lap times, that sort of thing, for letting your teammate by. But he will almost certainly, if we're unable to break the DRS, he'll certainly get by us down one of the straights coming up. So we'll let him through. I do think overall my current pace, if I wasn't dragging him along with DRS, is a little bit quicker. So I wasn't stoked to be getting this call, but we're going to play the good teammate game. We're going to find an ideal spot to let him through, and then we'll hang on to his gearbox. And if he's not going, if he doesn't pick up his pace, then we'll repass him. But there's no harm in seeing if he's got the pace to try and drag us closer to Logan Sargent, who at this point I think is about 5 seconds ahead. You can see him just crossing the start-finish line now. And it's about 5 seconds or so, the gap. So here comes Nico with the DRS open. We're only using enough battery at this stage to make sure that the Alpines don't get past us as well. But we're going to slot in right behind our teammate into turn 1 and 2 and move forward with this race and let's see what he can do. We're going to give him at least a healthy lap, but if I start feeling some heat and some attack from the cars behind, I will not hesitate to get him back if I've got the pace to do so. So a successful objective handled. And here we go on to the next pit. So we're on lap 14 of 29. Our next pit window is going to be on lap 20 to grab the set of soft tires. We're going to jump ahead end of this lap 15. You can see Nico hasn't really found any distance on us. We're going to go ahead and repass him down into turn 1. We barely even had to burn any battery to get past him, so that shows you what kind of pace advantage we really had on him. And we're going to go ahead and try and chase down Logan Sargent. So another thing that that has changed, and this is not specific to the game, but that is going to be different, is I have switched, and you've probably already noticed that the little key bindings all over the place are little circles with numbers in them instead of the usual Xbox logos you expect to see from my recordings. I am playing just exclusively on PC for this. I'll be honest, I wanted to be able to use more of the buttons that the wheel has, because it's limited in as terms of some of the dials and encoders that you can use on the Fanatec F1 wheel when you're hooked up to a console. You're basically limited to what a controller would be able to handle. But being able to use the little thumb wheels for brake bias and differential adjustments just at a flick of the thumb rather than having to navigate through the menus, being able to have a quick turn of a dial to change my ERS modes without having to switch through all the different screens and then come and use the arrows is a nice thing. However, I do lose the benefit of having a dedicated one dedicated system playing the game and one dedicated system recording the game. And my PC was built in 2019, so it's still relatively recent, but it is getting a little older at this stage. So I am kind of fine-tuning the graphical settings and everything that I'll need in order to make sure that things stay running smooth. So jumping ahead now, lap 19 of 29. And here's how close the field still is. We were within a pit stop of the leaders, so we're going to lead a lap because we're pitting at the end of the next lap. So we're going to cross the start-finish line in the lead of a race in our first time of asking, but we are expecting to come out pretty much at the back when we do pit. But it looks like the RBs, I almost said Alpha Tauris again, have carved themselves out a decent little spot in the race. It's kind of interesting to see they're still using that RB or the Alpha Tauri kind of navy for their dots and their team color stripe on the timing boards, even though the Visa Cash App RB team is now back to using that kind of bright blue that Toro Rosso once ran. So we'll see. Maybe there will be an update a little later on that changes that and adjusts the coloration of those cars. It looks like a little bit of audio glitching on the recording. The audio glitching wasn't happening in the actual race itself through speakers, so that's just recording artifacts. Again, talking about the PC not quite being able to handle it. And so here we go. Through the final corner, Danny Rick has closed up quite a bit to us. Those Cash App RB teams definitely higher than us on the performance charts, going pretty well for themselves, but you can see a main team Red Bull looking to make the overtake, and Danny Rick going to go down the inside. We are going to sweep around the outside. We had the lead at the timing line, so we do get credit for leading a lap, which doesn't really mean much, but it's cool. First race out, we technically led a lap. Granted, it's on alternate strategy, and we're going to be, at best, looking for maybe like a 16th place finish in this race. But we are pressing on. Going to burn some extra battery. We have the opportunity to take a little extra out of the tires this lap here and use what's left of them. As far as the current handling model, the tire wear is also much more specific to the tires. So based on how you're scrubbing, how you're loading, you will see much more stark differences between the wear levels of tires on different corners. So like, for example, this long sweeping left-hander makes it tough on that front left tire. It takes the brunt of the wear on the two front tires. Bahrain, though, primarily a rear limited circuit, so it's more about getting on the power and how it wears the tires out, and you can definitely see the AI has an advantage in getting on the power kind of already, but now with the tires wearing, it gets a little tougher. Both Danny, Rick, and I locking up on the way into the pit limiter line, and this is the reason why I wanted to stay ahead of him on the way into the pit stop and not just letting him pass me in turn one on last lap, is Just every little advantage. Try and get clean air on our nose. He's pretty quick, but we're onto a set of soft tires. It does look like he has a slow stop happening in the background. He's just now been released. So it looks like a slow time getting the tires on. And here comes our teammate around into turn 1, and we are going to join right on the back end of that train with some fresh soft tires to go the remaining 9 laps in this race. And once again, there's a fight happening in front of us. So we've got another objective on the board using overtake ERS mode for 1.3 seconds each lap. I'm already at this stage using the hot lap mode just because we can push on and it kind of keeps the battery at a steady state since we recharged on the way into the pit lanes. But we've already got a move done on Alex Albon. Of course, soft tires versus fresh softs versus old hards. Not much of a contest. And realistically, it's looking like with the gap up to Logan Sargent at nigh on 7 seconds or so, we're looking at best battling for P16 if we can get ahead of our teammate. But that's still our goal. We're still trying to finish ahead of our teammate and rectify the miss that was not finishing ahead of him in the qualifying session. So DRS enabled. Looks like Nico defending to the inside. So we're going to grab some slipstream, go maybe to the inside a little bit late. A little bit of a rear lockup. Had to make a bit of an adjustment, but Nico squeezed us right onto the curbing. Thought we were enough alongside to get a little bit of respect and some space, but battling with our teammate. Already a little contact between the two of us. Not bad blood, just a little misjudgment. But now it's going to be very important. I'm going to try and make sure that Ocon doesn't get away from us while Nico and I squabble through the first couple of corners. Make sure we stay with Ocon, and then make sure that our teammate has an opportunity to try and fight with Ocon. Of course, we're looking ahead to P15. Sorry, I was doing math poorly because of where the timing tower was. But 15th would be an okay finish for us. And we're on DRS once again and getting rolling. In the wheel tracks of the Alpine. Of course, we're easily covering our overtake usage for the goal, but we're quite close to the back end. Nico is still about a half second off of us, so he's in a good spot. A little lift and coast just to make sure we get a good exit and not worry about what the other car is doing. So we've got a decent launch off the final corner. DRS is open. Now we're starting to get on the overtake, giving just a little squirt of it because we're in hot lap mode already. Now we're going to turn the ERS deployment down to medium. That's going to cause us to harvest at the end of the straight. Since we had enough of the nose ahead, I want to try and get a little bit of this battery back. Since we've burned down to around 50%. So we've got the opportunity to try and get a little bit of battery back. If there's a little bit of seesaw back and forth, there's the chance likely that Ocon may overtake us with the superior straight line speed that he's got. But we're going to try and just make some moves with the soft tires. I am going to save up battery. The other reason I put it to medium is to try and save up a fuller battery to go for a fast lap to break the DRS. But jumping ahead now, lap 28 of 29, about to be lap 29, you can see we were not able to break the DRS to Esteban Ocon. So it's going to be kind of his last time down this main straight. We've burned down to 13% battery. Not a lot left in the tank. He's not close enough to really pull out and go for a lunge on us. So we managed to hold position down into turn 1, which is good. And now we're going to press on to turn 4. So another DRS opportunity for him. He's got the rear wing open, but he's not going to be close enough to really close up because of the exit we got. At this point, the soft tires, not the most stellar in their health. They've kind of worn down a bit, and that's why we weren't able to really separate from Ocon and Hulkenberg, but we were able to get to the head of this little pack. Sargent, 5.6 seconds the margin, and I did notice kind of on this one, you'll see At the end of the race, it seems the AI doesn't manage their battery quite perfectly. They tend to actually not have a lot of battery left to deploy in the second half of the final lap. And you'll kind of see that as we get to the last little bit. We've got 6/10 as we come out of the corner. But you can see the amount of time that we've eaten into Logan Sargent over the course of this one. And we have some battery still to burn down this back straight. And this is really where it comes in. You can see dropping off. They've lost a full almost 3/10 down this straight. They're basically out of battery. Big lift and coast to make sure that we hit our fuel target because we have burned quite a bit of fuel up. And now here we go across the line. We're going to grab a P15 in our first race. Not bad.
All right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
That's it then for another spectacular Grand Prix here in Bahrain, and a real champion's drive to take the win.
Well, all that off-season work clearly paying off here today. A brilliant way to start the season with a solid victory. It's a real good confidence boost as well, and you feel like that's going to really propel them forward through to the next race coming up.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. There's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves.
So Max Verstappen on the top step of the podium. Not a big surprise there. A 1-2 for Red Bull. Charles Leclerc in Ferrari in a nice spot, P3. So a good, a non-surprising start to the
I'm
season.
equal parts exhausted and elated with this weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for the next one.
So there we go. P15, 2 spots ahead of our teammate. Managed to make our way a little bit forward, but you see the clumps of cars, and Max Verstappen also grabbed the fastest lap point of that race. So not surprising, Red Bull on top of the constructors. We down in P9, just off the tiebreakers. So in the post-game screen here, you take a look at our teammate rivalry. Of course, Nico got the edge of us in qualifying. We got the edge in the race. So pretty much even Stevens between the two of us. And now the way the ratings will change, you get some pace stat in qualifying. You get some experience stat in practice. You get a little bit of everything in the race. So, and you can see there's some perks related to the recognition levels that we're able to reach. Now it's 56.44, so we're still going to be getting a little bit less overall resource points. Of course, we've hit our manufacturing experts target for the race weekend, and of course the dynamic objectives also apply. But you see it's going to take a while to hit that first level up to get his first reputation. Of course, with them not being available every single race weekend, it's going to be something to look out for. So we do have some weekly resources coming up, and now you can see a few more of the specialists are available. And the way I'll run typically is I will make sure to set up the next race weekend in the current episode, and then the next episode will kind of kick off going right into the race weekend proper. So we'll grab some of our goals, completing with 2 different engine components. Wind tunnel engineer is all about aero, so upgrade time, component costs, and we're going to just open the DRS for 45 seconds. Easy peasy. Should be done in practice. Power unit consultant. We're going to go with finishing in a position better than our teammate. And the material fabrication planner is about chassis upgrades. And easy. We complete way more than 5 laps in practice each week, just off of doing 5 laps for the race simulation anyway. So we'll take a look at the developments still in process. We actually have a discount on the cylinder head. So we're not even going to wait for the resource points that we're going to get on the upgrade. We're just going to go ahead and put that in now, and you can see our 88 extra resource points only gives us 189, so it's not going to be enough to do any other sort of upgrade. So there we have it, Saudi Arabia coming up next. Thank you all for joining me on this slightly longer setup episode. I'll try and keep them around 30 minutes or so going forward, but That all depends on how the race action goes. And of course, sprint weekends could be a bit of a variance in that regard. But thank you all for joining me this time around. I will catch you guys next time as we head back to the driver career. Peace.